This is how dating used to work. Not so long ago. And this is how dating works today.
And I'll be sure to treat you like a nasty little
Us millennials, we're going on fewer dates, and against our logic, we're having less sex than previous generations. Being single is in fashion.
God, I love being single.
Barney, you ready for brunch with Lily and Marshall?
What have I done?
For a number of reasons, and I'm gonna get to that, but that's also the perfect business model for the Tinders of the world, and they are not missing out on exploiting it, twisting the narrative to reinforce their own business models, to keep you single. And this is a real shift. 74% of millennials and Gen Zers use dating apps for an average of 2 hours a day. I mean, apps have replaced, honestly, the very awkward process and action of asking someone out, but also first dates have been replaced with sex interviews.
Let's do this.
And it's a whole thing, and I'm gonna get to it again, but if a normal date ever happens, it happens way down the line in relationships. So much so that boomers have started calling this thing slow dating. But changing the order in which we do things is not the issue here. I mean, you could even argue that it has some pretty solid benefits. The problem is technology has fundamentally changed not only our dating, but also our sexuality, our mental health, our reproduction. And while we millennials have been the guinea pigs of these transformation of these platforms, we also have been able to set many of the rules. For Gen Zs, this change has been much more harder to embrace and is carrying much deeper repercussions in society. So this is our 5th episode in our Millennials Decoded series, how tech broke dating. For centuries, we've understood sex as this basic human need, or at least we can agree on the consequences of not getting any. Sex helps your immune system, it lowers your blood pressure, it eases stress, it improves sleep, it reduces the risk of prostate cancer, truly. It supposedly even reduces the chances of a heart attack. But for cultural or for faith-based reasons, sex has traditionally required a relationship, a monogamous relationship, and not anymore.
Monogamy was invented by men. Men need monogamy.
Men were not monogamous.
I could be monogamous, but I would have to have like a side hoe, like, you know.
They pick a monogamous marriage and they cheat with high status guys.
On this survey of 1,300 adults, YouGov found that an equal number of millennials, about 43%, would like a monogamous relationship versus a non-monogamous relationship. 1 in 3 millennials are already in a relationship that they consider non-monogamous, and this is great business for dating apps, keeping people in search of new sexual partners. All of these platforms operate as a subscription, and the backbone of a subscription business is this number, churn rate. How many people, on average, cancel a plan every month? If 10% of all Tinder Gold customers cancel every month, then on average, Tinder will collect $150 from each one of those customers for an average of 10 months. However, if they can reduce that number to 5%, then the average lifetime of a customer goes up to 20 months, making their average revenue per customer $300. I mean, I know this because the numbers for our presentation business are not too different. Like, we have to retain people for longer. And we've understood this crucial churn metric for years thanks to ChartMogul, which is our sponsor for today's video. All you have to do to use ChartMogul is connect your data source, whether it's a spreadsheet or Stripe or wherever you charge your customers, and ChartMogul will automatically estimate your churn rate, your customer lifetime value, your refund rates, your cohort tables, and every stat that you need to understand how your subscription business is performing. You can even create filters. You can understand when customers from a certain campaign, for example, whether they retain longer than customers coming from a different campaign, or segment them by country to understand who's staying longer. Understanding this behavior is what lets the Tinders and the Bumbles of the world spend more aggressively in certain demographics that have much better returns for them. You can sign up for ChartMogul for free using the link in the description. ChartMogul is free for any company that has under $10,000 in MRR, and if you're a bigger business than that, you can get up to $600 off using the code Slidebean at checkout. You also support our channel and really our friends because we've known these guys for a long time. Okay, so
Sco Stu is back on Tinder.
being able to influence customers into remaining single is at the core of these companies' business. And they twist the narrative to do so. I mean, as we researched this video, our big struggle was trying to find some actual real data that wasn't skewed by the narrative of these companies. For example, eHarmony has this pretty nice infographic website that says that 70% of Americans want a serious relationship, while Tinder says that 71% of millennials choose to be single for a while, whatever that rewarding means. This discussion over how we should date, about what's right or wrong regarding relationships and sex, it can turn political very easily. But we've had enough politics in this channel for a month. Welcome to Texas. So just a quick note here. I was raised a Catholic, and one of the reasons I started feeling disengaged with that belief system was on how sex was turned into this taboo topic. How faith seemed to contradict human nature. I think our major breakthrough that our generation seems to have made, at least in many parts of the world, is reconciling that our human need for sex is not the same as our human need for being in a relationship. And this is at the core of this transformation. And of course at the business model of these platforms. Not too long ago, probably for your parents, marriage was the only socially acceptable setting for sex. In the 70s, 70% of people would not consider sex outside of marriage as morally correct. That number was down to 58% by 2012, and today is even lower, especially for the growing number of people who don't subscribe to a religion.
A normal person.
Yeah, a normal person.
What makes you a normal person?
Well, I don't believe in God.
I love it when he does that.
Removing this taboo from our culture and our thinking fundamentally changed how dating happens and how relationships form today. And all dating apps needed to do to jump on this trend was to add a simple question, simple survey. And so dating apps allow this constant supply of new partners. They connect people with similar intentions without the barrier of what's still accepted or not accepted in society. Honestly, finding a date the traditional way, I mean, it requires a certain set of skills and experience. You have to figure out a way to get introduced to this person.
Hi, have you met Ted?
You have to make a move and probably get rejected 90% of the time. You have to exchange contact info, you have to plan a date, dress up, overcome the awkward silences.
Don't you hate that?
Get along offline. For most men, the success rate on Tinder is much lower than 90% if you just count swipes. Some actually have bothered to share their Tinder data on Reddit, but a swipe rejection or just getting ghosted on Tinder hurts a lot less than the real world alternative when you ask someone out and get a no.
Watch this, Lise. You can actually pinpoint the second when his heart rips in half. And now.
And also the post-Me Too era has made a lot more people much more cautious about approaching someone and asking them out. And then of course, moving this interaction to a digital setting can make things easier, especially if you weren't too skilled the other way. A place with natural built-in filters where you can present yourself with hand-picked photos with just the right angle, where you have time to craft a reply or to experiment with different one-liners, a setting where paying for a subscription gives you an advantage. Well, I think some people might prefer that than the in-person alternative. 48% of people prefer to get to know each other over the phone before going on a date. And then 28% of millennials are okay with sexting, which honestly seemed like a really low number to me. I feel that number is higher, but okay. Data. And if so much of this filtering is happening digitally, then can people just skip the first date altogether? I mean, the process of dating is like a vetting process. You're understanding if you share values or beliefs. You're testing if you can get along, if you stand each other, and if you're compatible. So why not do some of this vetting over the phone and change the order of this checklist and have sex happen earlier? Prominent anthropologist Dr. Helen Fisher actually calls this the sex interview. She also says millennials rock, so even though she's a boomer, we like her. Now, I've been in a monogamous relationship for 10 years. This doesn't really apply to my own experience, but I can see a lot of logic in this reasoning. And there's another critical benefit to skipping that first date. The average millennial date costs $69. That's
69.
I'm not kidding, it's the average, $69. But more than 25% of these dates cost more than $100.
What? $100?
Oh, my mistake, sir. Thank you for pointing that out. This is your bill.
and 1 in 3 millennials can't afford it. There's been an appreciated shift in splitting this bill, but these numbers also reveal a little bit of hypocrisy on this. Check it out. 75% of millennials and Gen Zs agree that the bill should be split. That's 3 out of 4. Fantastic. However, 1 in 3 believe that the chances of a second date are higher if their date pays. Even worse, 1 in 5 says that the chances increase based on how much their date spent on the first date. So this is of course a detractor, because 30% of millennials and Gen Zs have said that their financial situation is holding them back from dating, as in they literally choose not to go on dates because they don't believe that they have the financial stability to be in a relationship. For the first time in 160 years, the average people per household in the US grew. And it's not because millennials are having more kids. That's not what's moving the average. We made a video about that. It's because millennials and Gen Zs can't afford to move out of their parents' house. And so this life path that has been presented to us, this life path that we understood as the norm, which is moving out and dating and then getting married and then having kids, it's becoming more and more unattainable each year. At our age, 61% of boomers were already married, compared to just 44% of millennials. Getting married later in life has benefits, like divorce rates, for example, have been on a steady decline for decades, but the core problem is there's this illusion of choice. I always rant about the economy that we grew up in, but it really has effectively slowed down our capacity to follow either of these paths. And every single study, every single paper that I read for this video concludes that millennials don't want to settle, that we don't want long-term relationships, that we want to take our time, and we do. But I wonder how much of that is an actual desire and how much of that is just coping or rationalizing with the fact that even if we wanted to, we can't. And so rewind about 8 minutes into the video into me blabbering about the benefits of sex, the immune system, the blood pressure, the stress, and the prostate cancer, and reducing the chances of a heart attack, yada yada.
And yada yada yada.
Perhaps most concerning than everything is that despite this new mindset, despite access to almost an unlimited pool of candidates through dating apps, despite our understanding of these benefits, millennials and Gen Z are having less sex than previous generations. A survey of young Californians found a steady rise. 30% of people 18 to 30 hadn't had a sexual partner in the last 12 months. And this is before the pandemic. A small percentage of this can be attributed to people who have come out as asexual, but that is not the main factor. Money is a clearly measurable factor.
Money. No money.
This UCLA study found a direct correlation between people's income and the amount of sex that they have. But that's not the only factor. In young women, and I think this is actually good news, there's been a steady decrease in the amount of alcohol consumption, which is connected to a steady decrease in sexual activity. But for men, it's living with their parents, and it's the frequency at which we play video games that inhibits sex behavior. I mean, gaming is fun. I think for a lot of people, it sort of replaces that need in some way, but it doesn't. It doesn't really. And there's a serious question in there on how much these digital interactions are replacing human interactions for us and how that affects us in the long term. We've explored these issues in our Corn video about the company that controls it and our video about OnlyFans. But there is absolutely no argument to defend that replacing human interactions with digital interactions helps at all. Depression in teenagers is directly connected to the time they spent in social media every day. Several studies have concluded that mental health is a growing issue for millennials and a worse one for Gen Zs, and this is all interconnected. And so more than once before in this series, we've ended up blaming boomers for our problems, and I don't think that that's necessarily what I want to do in this video. The numbers say that we are replacing these human interactions, including sex, with digital ones, interactions that are not healthier and that are not enriching. Millennials, we seem to want to solve our financial issues and our mental issues before going on dates. It's not necessarily bad, but that also means that we're missing out on the benefits of those relationships. We may rationalize slow dating and this desire to be single as our choice, but really that may just be our brains coping with the fact that we don't really have a choice. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this video, the best way to tell YouTube about it is to hit that red button. And if you enjoyed the video, you should also check out our episode on pets and how pets have replaced children for our generation. See you next week.